At T-Mobile, our critical mission is providing unparalleled 5G coverage for when connectivity is mission critical. Introducing T-Priority, America's best 5G network experience for first responders, even in times of congestion. More capacity, faster speeds, better coverage. T-Priority from T-Mobile, built for tomorrow's emergencies, ready today. Discover more at t-priority.com.
For qualifying organizations on eligible rate plans, coverage not available in some areas and may be impacted by emergencies.
Every Pokemon Episode Ever podcast is now on YouTube. Go on YouTube and search Every Pokemon Episode Ever podcast and click that subscribe button to never miss an episode. Welcome back, everybody, to another fantastic episode of the Pokemon Adventures podcast. A small, short podcast off of the Every Pokemon Episode Ever podcast brand. I am your host, Professor Chris G, and I am here to go down this long rabbit hole of Pokemon Adventures manga, everybody. And today we are going over Chapter 7. Today's chapter is called Raging Rhydon. So that is the chapter that we're going down. And if you're following this podcast, you know I like to give a small recap at the beginning of this podcast as to what happened last week on the show. So last week, we are introduced to Misty. She has a raging Gyarados right in front of her. Red comes over to help because Gyarados is defeating all of her Pokemon. Red comes in with his Bulbasaur, is able to weaken Gyarados, and he's able to actually capture Gyarados with his own Pokeball. Come to find out, this Pokemon is Misty's, and it's in an enraged. It's enraged after being stolen for a couple days, but she was able to find her Gyarados because it was tearing down trees and stuff in its path, going to wherever it was going to. And Misty and Red end up going over to the Pokemon Center just to find out that Team Rocket has been using Pokemon for experiments. And this enrages Red. Red is really, really, really mad, and he doesn't want Team Rocket to get away with this. Professor Oak gives a small hint that Team Rocket might be looking for the Moonstone at Mount Moon. So they might be up there, and if they're up there, you can probably try to stop Team Rocket. I don't know why you would send a little kid to go over there instead of sending the authorities, but we wouldn't have a comic book manga strip if that was the case. So they are on their way over there. We find out Misty's name officially towards Red. She has 6 Pokemon, and they are on their way over to Mount Moon. And we got a small little snippet that Team Rocket is already there, and they are looking for the Moonstone. And that anyone that gets into their way to proceed with them with extreme force. So it's time to start Chapter 7. Chapter 7 is called Raging Rhydon. And we start off with a frame of Misty and Red running in the field. And Misty is like, right there, right over this hill is Mount Moon. And Red's like, oh, okay, I'm following you. And as soon as they get up the hill, Misty immediately takes Red by the head and slams him down into the grass. She's like, whoa! She's like, somebody's over there. And then they take a closer look, and it's Team Rocket. And it's just a bunch of them just standing over there, and they are talking right outside of a cave. And Red's like, wait a minute. That uniform. Is that Team Rocket? Misty goes. And Red's like, I think so. Those jerks are everywhere. And they're like, so what now? somewhere in there is a moonstone that can boost Pokemon's power. Exactly what we need. And he's like, you think I'm gonna back down now? Quick, let's get into the cave. And in these frames, we got a close-up of a moonstone that has literally a moon implanted shape in a rock. And then they start crawling in the tall grass where Team Rocket cannot see them to get into the cave. The next frame, it says that they are deep in the caverns. And one of them is like, oh, Misty goes, it's awful dark in here. And Red's like, just leave everything to me. He's like, okay, bright eyes, I'm counting on you. And he throws out Pikachu. Boom. And Misty's like, is that a Pikachu? And it's at this point, Red just looks down. He's like, well, it ain't Mickey Mouse. I love it. Love it. And Misty's like, doesn't exactly look thrilled to be here. And Red's like, yeah, life's tough, little fella. But Pikachu's one talented little... And then Pikachu lets out a nice little shock from its cheeks. And it's like, choo! So Pikachu is guiding the way with its light inside of the cave. And it's at this point that we see a whole bunch of Zubat. So this is the first time we are getting Zubat in this manga series. And Misty and Red are walking along the cave. It looks like they're kind of gossiping a little bit. It looks like Red might be flirting with Misty just a little bit. And then he turns around and walks straight into a rock. Or so he thinks. Red's like, stupid rock, I oughta. And Misty's like, Red, look up. And Red looks up. He's like, huh? And then we hear, roar. And one of the Team Rocket members is right there, standing right next to his Rhyhorn. And Team Rocket member goes, well, if it isn't Tom Sawyer and little Becky in the cave. And then from here, a whole lot more Team Rocket members come surrounding Ash, Pikachu. I keep saying Ash. Come over and surround Red, Pikachu, and Misty. And Red's like, you're Team Rocket. And the Team Rocket member is like, you know us. We're flattered. And then he snorts. He's like, and who are you? He's like, let me answer you like this. Let's do it. And Red's like, I challenge you. And the Team Rocket member kind of laughs in this next frame. And he's like, Rhyhorn, rock blast. And Rhyhorn opens its mouth, spits out a whole bunch of rocks, and literally blasts Pikachu right in the face, knocking it back into the wall. And not only does it get knocked back, but Pikachu gets covered in the rubble. And you just hear a bunch of clatter, clatter, clatter. And then Pikachu jumps up out of the clatter and sends a whole bunch of the rocks flying into the air. And Pikachu uses its tail to kind of fixate. It looks like it took a lot of the rocks and it turned them into a circle with an electric ball and threw the rocks back right on Rhyhorn and hit Rhyhorn straight in the face. And we get a bunch of adjectives, as if the Team Rocket members said something that they don't want kids saying. And Red's like, you may look cute, Pikachu, but oh, you are one ornery. And I actually had to look that up, but it said that he said Pikachu is ornery, which in so little words is like little but tough and combative. And the Team Rocket member, he starts laughing. He's like, huh, takes me back to when I was a boy. Let me give you a little taste of reality. And he takes out a needle out of his pocket. And Red and Misty are sitting there and they're like, huh, what is he about to do? And the Team Rocket member takes the needle and injects something right into Rhyhorn's back and tells Rhyhorn, crush them. And Rhyhorn looks at him. He's like, read. And then all of a sudden we get a bunch of frames of Rhyhorn evolving into Rhydon. And in the final frame, Rhydon is ready to battle. And Red's like, he turned Rhyhorn into Rhydon. And Misty's kind of taken back. And then we get a frame of Gyarados looking out of its Pokeball at what's going on out here. And Misty's like, are you responsible for what happened to my Gyarados? And the Team Rocket member's like, how should we know? You think we remember every little Pokemon we experiment on? And Misty's like, you rotten. Staryu, attack! And she sends out her Staryu. And Staryu uses Water Gun. And the Water Gun seems to be having a major effect on Rhydon. And she's like, it's working. We got him. And the Team Rocket member puts his head down. He's like, dear me, do you think so? In the next frame, Rhyhorn starts spinning its horn on its head. And Misty's like, uh-oh. And then the Team Rocket member is like, horn drill. And it takes all the water that's being splashed on it, turns it into a cyclone, and blasts Staryu and Misty right in the face. And Red is holding on to a rock as hard as he can. And all of a sudden we see Misty go flying. And Misty goes flying back and then hits the wall. Boom! And she is knocked out. And Red's like, Misty! And then he looks over at Team Rocket and the Rhydon. Misty is knocked out, laying on the ground. They'll pay for this, Red goes. And then the Team Rocket member is like, perhaps in some other lifetime. And Red's like, oh yeah? Pikachu, attack! And Pikachu runs in, and Rhydon takes its foot and looks like it's about to squish Pikachu right under its foot. And then all of a sudden, boom! Just smashes Pikachu right into the ground. And the Team Rocket member is like, it's over. Rhydon, attack! And Rhydon starts drilling into, it looks like it's drilling into the wall and having a whole bunch of rocks start flying everywhere right over at Red. And Red's like, I guess nobody wins every fight, but I'm not gonna lose to jerks like you. And Pikachu is still being squished under Rhydon's foot. And Red's like, Pikachu, now! And Pikachu's like, and it's starting to get a whole bunch of static electricity. And it unleashes its electricity under Rhydon's foot and also flicks back, sending Rhydon right onto its back. And then Pikachu lets out what looks like a thunderbolt. And the Team Rocket member is like, where are you flying, Pikachu? Out of control, perhaps? And Pikachu sends out its electric attack over on a wall, but it also looks like it has sliced a big piece of the wall when it was going up and getting from underneath Rhydon. And we see a big cut in the ceiling, and the Team Rocket members are like, oh crap. And then from here, the big rock starts falling from the ceiling, and all of the Team Rocket members start running. And then we have another scene where the rock is just falling down and it crashes onto the ground. And he's looking, the Team Rocket main member is looking around. He's like, gone. They're gone. And from here, we jump to the exit of Mount Moon, and Misty is like, oh, where am I? Red has Misty on his back as Poliwhirl, Staryu, and Pikachu are running out of the cave as well. And she's like, what the? I'm covered in dirt. And Red's like, huh? And then Misty jumps off of Red's back and she's like, you got me all dirty. And she just blasts Red right in the middle of the face. I don't think Red really deserves that. And then we jump to what looks like about maybe 5 minutes later after Red kind of explains everything. And he's like, you should have seen me in there. I nailed Rhydon with Pikachu in one shot. And then Misty's like, sure, whatever. But we didn't get the Moonstone. And Red's like, hey, if you'd let me finish my story. And he holds out his hand and he's holding a moonstone. And Misty's like, eep! And Red goes on to explain. He's like, the cave collapsed and there it was, just sitting there on the ground. And he's like, now let's use it. And Misty's like, you did it! And then we go to the next panel, which is the last panel. And it shows that we have arrived in Cerulean City, the city of water. And then we have what looks like Red is like, this is a joke, right? Because we see a whole bunch of canoes and everything surrounded by water. And that is where we end chapter 7. And getting ready to go into chapter 8, which is titled Suddenly Starmie. So that is chapter 7, everybody. And man, so these episodes are done like really, really well. And it's like every time I'm reading these, I feel like I'm like watching this in animation form. Like the artwork is so great in this manga. The only thing that I have to stop calling Red Ash, which I'm sure at some point I'll get over that hump, but I'm still fresh into this, and I'm so used to doing the regular podcast with Dougie Fresh and us talking about Ash all the time because that anime revolves around Ash, as this manga series so far revolves around Red. So it looks like we are finally here in Cerulean City. Misty has not told Ash anything about her being a gym leader as of yet, so I'm sure that's coming up in the next chapter. Let's see. But other than that, Team Rocket doesn't seem like they're done with Red, so I'm sure they're going to be coming up in future episodes as well. But other than that, it's time to get my plugs in, and we can go on to find out what happens in Chapter 8 for next week. Or you can follow us on Patreon, patreon.com/everypokemon, and you can go on there right now and find out what happens in Chapter 8, because Chapters 5 through 8 is on Patreon right now as one big file, so you can listen to each chapter one by one. And by the time you are listening to this, I'm pretty sure we are completely done, almost done, if not done, with the full volume 1 of this manga series. So go on there and you can subscribe. Every subscriber helps out this podcast for us to do even more for you in the future of the Every Pokemon Episode Ever podcast, everyone. So other than that, follow us on Twitter at PokeBreakdown. That is where I go and I tweet out everything for this manga series and our regular podcast. And that, I believe that's about it, everybody. I've kind of given up on the Instagram, but I might bring it back. Yeah, I might bring it back. Follow us at Poke Breakdown on Instagram. By the time you listen to this, I probably brought the Instagram machine back. So follow us on Instagram. And that's about it. There's nothing else to add. This was a really good episode. I'm really excited to find out what happens next between Ash. Wow, there I go again. Between Red and Misty in this manga adventure. But other than that, those are all of the plugs for this episode. I will see you next week. And this manga series is fun. But yeah, I will see you next week for another episode of the Pokemon Adventures podcast. Have a good night, everyone.